Hello, hello, and welcome to this edition of We is Greater Than Me. I'm hoping you're having a wonderful day. I'm here in sunny and extremely hot Las Vegas, Nevada. Today's session is called The View from the Outside of the House. Um, I have to ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that when you're inside your house every day, that there's a lot of stuff that you just stop noticing? You stop noticing what color the paint is or those pictures that have always been on the wall. When sometimes those little things that need repairing, you just don't think about them anymore. Those things that if somebody comes to visit, they would probably notice right away, but because you live in it, you've become so used to it, you don't notice. It's not because you don't care, it's because you're too close to it. You're living it, you're experiencing it, you're managing it, you're maintaining it. And that's true of more than just houses. It's true of teams, organizations, it happens with schools, churches, and sometimes with families. Sometimes we become so focused on operating the inside that we forget to step outside and take a look. That's one of the unexpected lessons I learned during this trip. Now, if you watch my recent Struggle to Serenity video, you already know Vegas wasn't exactly at the top of my travel wish list. I'm not a gambler, I don't drink, and I thought really that was all Vegas had to offer me, except for the fact, which is the reason we came, that my son is stationed here. So that was reason enough to come. I definitely wasn't excited about walking around in 103-degree temperatures. You know what? The only thing hotter than the sidewalks here was the disrespectful breeze that felt like somebody was aiming a giant blow dryer at us every time we walked out the door. But this trip gave me something I wasn't expecting. It gave me perspective. And sometimes perspective is exactly all a house needs. One of the most fascinating moments of this trip actually happened before we ever landed. For miles, as I looked out the window, all I could see was desert. Nothing but desert. There was mountains, there was rocks, it was dry. There was a bunch of sand, just open space. And then suddenly, there was a city. Lights, hotels, businesses, traffic, activity, life, right in the middle of what appeared to be nothing and nowhere. And I couldn't stop thinking about the person who first imagined this. Somebody looked at all that desert and saw possibility. Somebody had a vision before there was evidence. Somebody had a dream before there was a building. Somebody had a plan before there was a city. They saw something nobody else could see. And over time, that dream grew. The plan grew. People joined in the vision. Resources followed. Work was done. And eventually, a city appeared where many people would have only seen limitations. That's leadership. That's teamwork. And that's vision at its finest. Because every house starts exactly the same way, with somebody's dream. Before there's a foundation, there's a vision. Before there's a wall, there's a blueprint. Before there's a roof, there's an idea. Before anyone sees the finished product, someone has to believe it's possible. But here's what happens. Once the house gets built, we tend to become consumed with maintaining it. We're solving problems, answering emails, managing schedules, handling conflict, meeting deadlines, putting out fires, trying to keep everything moving. And somewhere along the way, we stop seeing the dream. We get so focused on what's broken that we forget what we're building. And that's why stepping away matters. One of the things many of you know about me is that I love building Lego sets. And if you're ever built a complicated Lego set, you know there comes a moment when things stop being fun. You start out excited. You have the instructions, you have the pieces, you have the vision of what the finished product is supposed to look like. Everything is moving along perfectly. Then somewhere along the way, something doesn't fit. First you think, oh, it's just one piece. Will that really matter? Then you realize it isn't one piece. The problem happened 10 steps ago, maybe 20, maybe 50. Somewhere back there, you attached something incorrectly. And now everything that came after is affected. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a Lego build and thought I was almost finished. I could see the finish line. I could see the completed structure taking shape. Then suddenly I realized that a section was attached wrong 10 pages ago. Now I have to take half the thing apart and start that part over. And if I'm being honest, those are the moments when I have to make a decision because frustration starts showing up. And I know myself, if I keep going when I'm frustrated, I'm probably going to do a lot more harm than good. So sometimes I put the Lego set down and I walk away. Take a break. Not because I'm quitting, not because I don't care, not because I've abandoned the project. I step away because I care enough about the project not to throw it up against the wall out of frustration. Then something amazing happens. When I come back later, I see things I couldn't see before. The mistake becomes obvious. The solution becomes clearer. The patience returns. My perspective changes, and what felt impossible suddenly becomes manageable. As I was thinking about that during this trip, I realized that's exactly what happens in organizations. It's what happens at schools. It's what happens in churches. It's what happens on teams. Sometimes we're so close to the build that we stop seeing clearly. We're staring at the same problem, having the same conversations, looking at the same obstacles, trying harder and harder to force things into place. And what we really need isn't more effort. What we need is perspective. Fresh eyes, a different angle, a chance to step away from the house. Not because we're quitting, not because we don't care, but because we care enough not to damage the structure we're trying to build. Sometimes the most productive thing a leader can do is pause. Sometimes the most productive thing a team can do is step back. Sometimes the most productive thing an organization can do is remember the blueprint before continuing the build. And that's exactly what this trip did for me. It reminded me that there is a world outside of my daily responsibilities. It reminded me that sometimes you need to leave the house to appreciate the house. It reminded me that when you're standing in the middle of the build, all you can see are the unfinished sections. And that means that you're not appreciating how far you've actually come. It also reminded me of something else. See, my husband made this observation while we were walking the strip. Nobody was in a hurry. Nobody was running across the crosswalks. Nobody was rushing down the sidewalks. People moved, but they moved differently. You see, the locals understood something we didn't. You don't fight a 103-degree day. You adjust to it. You respect it. You work with it. And I thought about many organizations and how exhausted they have to be because they're trying to sprint through seasons that were meant to be walked through. We're busy, but are we building? We're moving, but are we moving together? We're active, but are we aligned? Because activity and progress, believe it or not, they're not the same thing. The house doesn't get stronger because people move faster. The house gets stronger because people are moving together. That's the lesson I kept coming back to while looking at this city in the middle of the desert. Las Vegas shouldn't exist by conventional thinking, yet somebody dreamed it. Somebody planned it. Thousands of people contributed to it. Generations invested in it. And today, millions of people get to experience it. Not because one person built it, because people came together around a shared vision. That's the power of we over me. The same thing is true of every organization, every successful school, every thriving church, every healthy team, every strong family, every great movement. They all started with a dream, a blueprint, a vision, and people willing to work together to bring it to life. So maybe the lesson today is simple. If you've been staring at the same problem for too long, step away from the house. If you've become frustrated with the build, step away from the house. If all you see are obstacles, step away from the house. Take a breath, get some perspective. Remember the blueprint. reconnect with the vision, then come back ready to build. Because sometimes the greatest breakthroughs don't happen while we're staring at the structure. They happen when we step back far enough to see what we're building. And please remember this: a dream plus a plan, plus people working together, can create something unimaginable. After all, when people work together around a common vision, even a desert can become a city. And that's what happens when we becomes greater than me.